Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. The courtroom fell silent as Mariah Carey, the elusive chanteuse and global icon, stepped into the witness box, not as a performer, but as a truth-teller. In a case already riddled with twisted testimonies and explosive footage, her appearance wasn't just unexpected, it was seismic. Her voice, once reserved for stadiums and award shows, now echoed under oath as she revealed a chilling confession Diddy allegedly made behind closed doors. "If they find out what I really do, it's over." For years, Mariah had stayed quiet, bound by offers of hush money, and haunted by a night in 2003 that she never dared to revisit, until now. What happened between her and Diddy wasn't about romance or rivalry, but revelation. And as she took the stand, she made one thing clear: she wasn't afraid anymore. This is the story of how Mariah Carey helped peel back the final layer of Diddy's world, and what she exposed left the entire courtroom in disbelief. The court clerk called the next name on the witness list: Mariah Carey. For 5 full seconds, not a single person in the courtroom moved. Even the stenographer paused her typing. And then, as if summoned by the collective breath of the gallery, Mariah appeared. Dressed in a sleek black suit with gold accents, dark sunglasses hiding her expression, she walked slowly toward the stand with her legal team flanking her like guardians of royalty. Diddy looked up. His face twitched just for a second. A blink, a turn of the lips. He hadn't expected this. The judge, typically composed, gave a half nod in acknowledgement. Cameras outside the courtroom scrambled to capture the scene as news bulletins immediately began blasting. "Breaking! Mariah Carey enters courtroom to testify in Diddy trial." This wasn't just another witness. This was a global superstar with nothing to gain, and seemingly everything to lose. As she took the stand, removing her sunglasses with quiet resolve, a whisper ran through the courtroom gallery. Someone said, "She's actually going through with it." The prosecutor stood, cleared her throat, and asked the first question. "Ms. Carey, can you please tell the court the nature of your relationship with Mr. Sean Combs?" Mariah didn't flinch. "We were acquaintances," she said. "Not friends, not collaborators, just 2 people orbiting the same industry. I never had a personal problem with him, until 2003. At that moment, all eyes turned to Diddy, who now sat motionless behind the defense table. His attorney leaned toward him, but Diddy gave no reaction. He was bracing, waiting. Mariah continued, "I wasn't called here to talk about rumors. I'm here because of what I was told in private, something I never thought I'd have to repeat under oath." The jury leaned forward. The gallery was silent. The mood had changed. Whatever this pop icon was about to say, it wasn't going to be small. And as she looked Diddy dead in the eyes, she added, "I've waited over 20 years to say this." Before 2003, Mariah and Diddy's paths had crossed dozens of times. Music video sets, award shows, executive dinners. They weren't collaborators, but they had mutual handlers, mutual enemies, and mutual respect. On the surface, Mariah testified that from the late 90s into the early 2000s, she saw Diddy at multiple events. He was always present, she said. Not just physically, but politically. He was in every conversation, every room, sometimes without even being invited. She recalled one particular moment in 2001 at the MTV Video Music Awards. Diddy had reportedly approached her at an after-party and complimented her new album. He told me he respected my career, but then he said something strange. "You're too clean for this room. That's not always safe." I laughed it off. It wouldn't be the last time she'd hear that phrase. She continued, explaining that the music industry during that time was not just competitive. It was ruthless. Allegiances weren't just about music. It was about survival, Mariah said. People thought being seen with Diddy meant protection, but some of us felt the opposite. She testified that there were whispers, too many to ignore. Whispered rumors about private after parties, about people being told to sign NDAs before walking into certain rooms. "And if you refused?" the prosecutor asked. "You didn't get the invitation again, and eventually, you didn't get the award show invite either." One name kept coming up behind the scenes: Diddy. Not as a mentor, not as a mogul, but as someone orchestrating a different kind of empire. Mariah never challenged it publicly. She didn't need to, but she admitted on the stand that by 2003, she had grown uncomfortable, and that discomfort would come to a head on a night that changed everything. Mariah's tone darkened. She leaned in slightly toward the microphone and began describing the night of July 19th, 2003. The night she was invited to what was described as an industry retreat in the Hamptons. She said she had just finished filming a music video and was exhausted, but her manager insisted the event would be good optics. "Everyone big is going to be there," they said. "It's hosted by someone who's rebuilding his brand." That someone was Diddy. The house, she recalled, was a sprawling waterfront estate with tinted windows and 2 private security checkpoints. The guest list included A-listers, media executives, and a few unfamiliar faces that didn't seem like entertainers. "More like watchers," she said. By 10 p.m., Mariah said, she was trying to leave. That's when Diddy approached her. He was calm, quiet. He asked if I wanted to join him in the private lounge. I said I was tired, but he insisted. Said there was something he wanted to clear up. She followed him into a smaller room off the main hallway. It was dimly lit, furnished with velvet chairs and 2 bodyguards outside the door. He poured himself a drink and just stared at me for a while, she said. Then he said it. "If they find out what I really do, it's over." The courtroom froze. Mariah continued. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't joking. He said it like a man who had already seen his empire collapse in his mind. She asked what he meant. He changed the subject. She tried to leave. He blocked the door briefly. Then, with a half smile, he said, "You'll be taken care of. Just don't talk. Ever. She left the room without saying another word. "I've carried that night with me for 2 decades, she told the court, "and I'm not staying silent anymore." The very next morning, Mariah testified, she checked out of the Hamptons estate early, well before sunrise. The house was eerily quiet. Security didn't say a word as she walked past them. She got into her car, driven by her longtime assistant, and made the drive back to Manhattan in silence. "I didn't know what I had just witnessed. It felt like a warning, like I wasn't supposed to be there at all," she told the court. But the warning wasn't over. Around noon, while settling back into her penthouse suite at the Saint, Regis, a hotel concierge, knocked on her door with a black envelope. He said it had just been delivered by private courier with my name on it. No return address. Just my initials. MC. In silver ink. Inside the envelope was $100,000 in crisp bills, bundled tightly with gold bands. There was no note, no explanation. But under the money was a smaller envelope. Inside that, a handwritten message. For your time. Keep the night to yourself. S. Mariah said she felt like her stomach dropped. It wasn't just the money. It was the message, the tone, the assumption that she could be bought. She showed the envelope to her manager, who advised her to return it immediately. But the number listed on the card was disconnected. Her team later confirmed through hotel security that the courier had come directly from a black SUV registered to a Manhattan rental fleet often used by Bad Boy Entertainment's associates. I didn't want the money, Mariah said in court. I wanted answers, or at the very least, space from that world. But what I got instead was fear. She placed the entire envelope and its contents into a hotel safe. A few weeks later, she mailed it back to the estate, with no return name. Just the words, "You know where this belongs." For years, she never mentioned it. Not even to close friends. It was one of those events you bury and try to forget. But when she watched Diddy walk into court months ago, accused of abuse, blackmail, and worse, that memory came roaring back. I knew I had to speak. I couldn't let that envelope sit in silence anymore, she concluded. The prosecutor's next question stopped everyone cold. Ms. Carey, were you aware of any other women at the 2003 party who expressed concern or who disappeared afterward? Mariah hesitated. For the first time during her testimony, she looked shaken. There was one, she said. She wasn't famous. She wasn't an artist. I think she worked in marketing or PR. We only spoke briefly, but she told me she felt out of place. The woman, whom Mariah only remembered as Lana, had mentioned something about accidentally walking into a side room during the party. She said she saw a camera setup, lights, and a man signing a paper with someone standing over him. She left the room quickly. But later that night, Mariah noticed that Lana was gone. No one mentioned her. 2 months later, Mariah received a strange message on her studio voicemail. A woman whispered, "I shouldn't have seen that. They told me not to talk to anyone. You should be careful too." The message was deleted by a studio intern later that day. By accident, Mariah assumed. But the voice haunted her. She was never able to confirm if it was Lana. In early 2004, she asked her manager to look into the woman's identity. "She's gone," he told her. "No record of her. No new job listings. Socials wiped." He warned her not to press it. "I knew something was wrong," she told the court. "But I also knew how the industry worked. People who poked around didn't last." The judge asked her if she had any evidence linking Diddy to Lana's disappearance. "No physical evidence," she replied. "Just fear. The same fear that kept me quiet for 20 years. But prosecutors used her testimony to tie together a growing web of stories. Missing assistants, silenced dancers, and now a pop icon who may have been offered money to look away from it all. By 2004, Mariah's career was still on the upswing, despite personal battles and the fallout of her 2001 breakdown. But behind the scenes, she testified, something changed. The phone stopped ringing for certain events, she said. Not all, just the ones tied to his people. Private galas, label-sponsored awards. Suddenly, I wasn't on the list. At first, she thought it was coincidence, but then came the calls. Quiet, subtle, almost friendly. One in particular, from a well-known executive at a major label. "Mariah, you're incredible. But I'd suggest you not bring up that night again. It's not healthy for anyone." That phrase, "not healthy," echoed in her mind for years. She said she received another message through a mutual acquaintance that bad things happen to women who talk too much. I was disgusted. I was furious. But I was also smart, she told the jury. You don't survive this long in the industry without knowing when a warning is real. She shifted the conversation to a moment in 2006 when she saw Diddy again at an awards ceremony. He was laughing, animated, surrounded by younger artists. When she caught his eye across the room, he froze. Then he gave her a smile. Cold. Calculated. That smile told me everything, she said. It wasn't about charm. It was control. It was him saying, "You stayed quiet. Good girl." She'd never spoken to him since. That moment convinced her she had been right not to speak. But watching the trial unfold in 2025, watching other women come forward, watching the dark corners of the industry start to unravel, she decided the time for silence was over. "I'm not afraid of him anymore," she said firmly. "I'm not afraid of the system that protected him, because once the truth is out, they can't control it." The courtroom shifted again as the prosecutor leaned in with a follow-up question that sounded simple but hinted at something deeper. "Ms. Carey, were there other individuals you personally heard Mr. Combs threaten?" Mariah exhaled and nodded slowly. "Yes, one incident I've never repeated before, but it's time." She testified that in 2005, while visiting a studio in Midtown Manhattan for a collaboration project, she overheard a conversation between Diddy and a young female R&B artist, a rising star known at the time for her powerful vocals and gospel roots. Mariah didn't want to name the singer outright in public, but she confirmed the initials and career timeline matched a now-vanished chart topper. The conversation took place in a side room adjacent to the main studio. Mariah had arrived early, expecting to meet her producer, but found herself unintentionally within earshot of Diddy's voice through a thin wall. According to her testimony, she heard him say, "You remember who gave you those records. You remember who owns your masters. Don't go talking like you've got freedom. This industry's got rules. I make 'em. You follow. Simple." Then, more quietly, but with venom, "If you think you can walk away, remember what happened to the last girl who tried." Mariah stepped back, stunned. She never mentioned it publicly, fearing backlash or accusations of mishearing. But months later, that same artist canceled her tour, dropped out of an award show, and was never seen in the spotlight again. "She just disappeared," Mariah told the courtroom, "and no one ever asked why, not publicly, because they knew. We all did." The weight of that statement hung in the air. Diddy sat frozen at the defense table, face blank, lips pressed together. His lawyers leaned in for whispered consultation. But the damage had been done. "I wish I had spoken then," Mariah admitted. "I was scared. I thought maybe I was being paranoid. But now, after what I've seen, I know that was real." This part of her testimony wasn't just about herself. It was for every artist who never got to testify. And in that moment, the gallery seemed to understand. This wasn't just a trial. This was a reckoning. By the time Mariah reached the 8th segment of her testimony, the courtroom was fully locked in. Reporters couldn't type fast enough. Jurors appeared visibly emotional. Even the judge seemed to shift in his seat with unease. Mariah's voice remained calm, but now she began discussing events that pointed toward organized cover-ups. "There were files," she said, "that people told me not to look at. Contracts, invoices, agreements made under strange names, things that didn't make sense." She testified that, at one point in 2008, she asked a former assistant to do a background search on an event Diddy co-sponsored that had mysteriously gone untelevised despite being a huge production. The assistant discovered shadow companies linked to shell organizations, all seemingly designed to hide payout records. When her team brought it up to a label executive, they were told bluntly, "We don't dig into that. You shouldn't either." The courtroom murmured as Mariah described how the pressure to remain silent grew stronger the more questions she asked. Her publicist received anonymous tips about potential scandals, threats about unreleased studio footage that could embarrass her, even rumors that suggested old tabloid stories might resurface if she kept probing. Then came the night of the 2010 award ceremony. Mariah said she was asked to present a Lifetime Achievement Award to Diddy. She declined. Within a week, she says, 3 endorsement deals mysteriously fell through. They didn't even call with an explanation, she said. They just went dark. The defense objected at this point, claiming it was speculative, but the judge allowed the testimony, given its pattern relevance. "What happened next?" the prosecutor asked. Mariah looked straight ahead. "I decided I'd wait for the day someone asked me to testify, and when that day came, I wouldn't hold anything back." Mariah Carey's final statement in court wasn't whispered. It wasn't even emotional. It was sharp, precise, devastating. "I'm not here to relive pain," she said. "I'm here because I believe the truth has power, and I'm here to say, loud and clear, Diddy told me exactly who he was, and now the world knows too." Her testimony ended in silence. Even the court reporter looked shaken. As Mariah stepped down from the witness stand, her security detail formed a path to the exit. She didn't speak to reporters. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She walked with the quiet dignity of someone who had just dropped a boulder into a still lake. Outside the courthouse, media outlets erupted. Hashtags like #Mariah Testifies and #Diddy Trial. Truth began trending globally. Talk shows and news pundits praised her bravery, while others wondered what else she still hadn't shared. Back inside, Diddy remained at the table, shoulders hunched. His legal team sat in stunned silence. The judge called for recess, but no one moved right away. Later that evening, as footage of Mariah's testimony aired across every major network, the cultural conversation shifted. This wasn't just another celebrity court case. This was the unraveling of an empire, and the pop queen who helped light the match. As one headline put it best, she hit the high note and shattered the silence. In the days following Mariah Carey's testimony, something changed. Not just in the courtroom, but in the entertainment world. It wasn't just fans reacting anymore. Executives, agents, producers, and former collaborators started reevaluating their silence. An invisible line had been crossed, and no one wanted to be on the wrong side of it when the dust settled. Media outlets replayed Mariah's line again and again, "If they find out what I really do, it's over." That single quote was splashed across headlines, TikToks, late-night monologues, and investigative segments. What had once been seen as Hollywood gossip was now considered a key puzzle piece in the prosecution's case. And behind the scenes, whispers began to escalate. Rumors swirled that 2 former executives at Diddy's label had agreed to provide sealed testimony. One anonymous source told Rolling Stone, "If she was brave enough to speak, maybe it's time we all were." Another assistant, who'd once worked red carpet events sponsored by Bad Boy Entertainment, posted cryptically on Instagram, "Some people silenced me. Others paid me. I kept the secrets, but no more. Justice is coming." Even celebrities who had long remained neutral were suddenly shifting. Talk show hosts praised Mariah's courage. A-list performers reposted clips from her testimony, adding only one word: respect. And industry veterans quietly removed past photos with Diddy from their feeds, signaling a clear break from someone who, just a year ago, had been hailed as untouchable. But inside the courtroom, the fallout was even more severe. Jurors were visibly rattled. Prosecutors, now energized, filed motions to compel additional witnesses to testify, including former security contractors and tour managers. The defense team attempted damage control, painting Mariah as a dramatic storyteller. But it didn't land. Because here was the truth no one could escape. Mariah had no motive to lie. She didn't need money. She didn't need fame. She hadn't released a record. She wasn't promoting a project. She showed up in court knowing full well what would be unearthed. She could have walked away from it all, and instead, she walked straight into the storm. And that made her dangerous, not in the tabloid sense, but in the truth-telling, silence-breaking sense, the kind of danger that topples empires built on fear. In a quiet interview given off-record, one juror reportedly said, "When she looked at him, it was like she was finally free. And he knew it." The courtroom hadn't just heard a testimony. It had witnessed a shift. The ripple effect was already underway, because once someone like Mariah Carey pulls back the curtain, there's no closing it again.